What's going on, everyone? This is Jonathan Salmon, and I'm back with another breakdown. This time, I'm going to be talking about Yair Rodriguez versus Jeremy Stephens. So, what I notice about both men are that they're both willing to be a bit wild, though I would give the wild factor, Yair edge in the wild factor way more than Jeremy Stephens. But both men are willing to kind of go out of the usual traditional striking kind of style and mix things up. Yair comes from a Taekwondo background, so he has a lot of wild kicks, a lot of spinning moves, a lot of spinning back fist, spinning back kick, wheel kicks, all these kind of things. Whereas Stephens is more of a boxer, like a kickboxing brawler, way more traditional type of style, but he'll throw some wild techniques. And when you see his attacks, you see his strikes are not as clean and traditional as the usual techniques that you'd be taught in a kickboxing or boxing gym. You know, he'll throw some hooks that are more like clotheslines, more than actual clean kind of technical hooks, but still effective. So, first things first, I'm going to be breaking down Jeremy Stephens' style first and what he should be doing in this fight if he wants to win. So, with regards to Stephens' style, he's very much, he loves to use this kind of haggler shift, you know, come forward, switch his stance, and it covers a lot of distance because of that. You know, Marvin Hagler was really known for doing this back in his heyday and really was able to dominate people with his ability to switch from orthodox to southpaw or back again. And because of that style, he's able to cover a lot of distance and keep people out of position and keep them guessing as to what offense is coming next. Stephens has also used that shifting style to switch to southpaw and throw kicks. You know, you saw that in the Doo Ho Choi fight. He would go throw his right hand over the top and switch into a southpaw stance, and from there be able to throw a hard left body kick. So he's really, you know, this shifting stance allows him to open up his offense in different ways. I think using that against Yair, you know, probably trying to use the left hand as well, left straight, left overhand, left body kick, left inside leg kick. I think all of that is going to be very effective for him. I also think because he has such heavy hands that using a lot of high volume boxing strikes, you know, in the pocket, once he's in that boxing range, I think it's really something he could use to his advantage because of his power. You know, and again, you know, the wild techniques, you know, just keep Yair guessing. You don't want to just be super traditional the entire time. You do want to kind of mix things up a bit, you know, throw him off. Don't be the only one just throwing, you know, traditional kind of techniques. As for countering Yair's strikes, you know, particularly his kicks, I think that Jeremy Stephens is going to want to counter immediately after any kind of leg kick, any kind of body kick. You know, throw a straight right hand if Yair throws a leg kick from orthodox stance. As soon as that lands, he has to be just on it, throwing that straight right hand immediately. Following up with a left hook would be great as well. But you know, we'll have to see how it plays out if his base is kind of disrupted from the leg kick or not. But if he's able to just continue to shift forward, he can just put the pressure on Yair and back him up against the cage. So, you know, I think that should be a priority for Stephens in this fight, just really getting Yair up against the cage where he can't really use his attacks, you know, close that distance, get out of kicking range and get into boxing range, pressure him up against the cage, and then unleash his hands. You know, so powerful. It's just going to be super effective for him. The problem with Stephens' style sometimes, though, he does get a bit wild and he leaves himself open to counter strikes. You know, I mean, Yair is more of he's really unorthodox with his counters. I'll get into that later. But, you know, backing away, he really is good at countering. And Stephens is going to have to be careful when he rushes forward. You know, so we've seen him get caught before rushing in with offense without, you know, much of a setup, just throwing a haymaker and getting countered hard from it and getting pretty hurt from it. So he's going to have to really control his aggression when he comes forward. That's I think that's the biggest that'll be the biggest challenge for Stevens in this fight, is just really controlling his and being more measured as he comes forward with his striking. But again, I think Stevens should really be focusing on closing the distance, getting out of the kicking range, forcing the fight into boxing range, shifting forward with strikes to get Yair against the cage, and then once he's there, just unleashing boxing combinations. He has a lot of power in his hands, so in a boxing exchange, he's probably gonna favor Stevens more than Yair. Yair is more of a person that wants to pick his shots and land from the outside, whereas Stevens, he'll do a lot of his work on the inside in the pocket, and he's so powerful that it's going to always benefit him. As far as Yair goes, he's going to want to, he's going to stick to using his wild strikes, his unexpected kind of techniques as well, but he's going to want to utilize some good left body kicks when he's in southpaw. I think that will open up a lot of strikes for him. Use the front kick to keep Stevens at bay, and really just show a different variety of kicks. Front kicks and that low line side kick are going to be really effective. The left body kick is going to be very, very effective from southpaw when he does decide to switch. I really do think that using that to the head, to the legs, to the body, all that is going to really open things up for Yair Rodriguez in this fight. The low line side kick is going to be great just to keep that distance and keep Stevens from just rushing in. But when Stevens does rush in, he needs to have his boxing on point. He has a pretty good jab, pretty good counter jab when the fighter uses leg kicks against him. That's another thing that I think Stevens should use as well, is definitely using leg kicks against Yair. Beat up his legs will be paramount. But, when he does get kicked to the legs, just like Stevens, Yair has to be on the ball and be able to counter right away. He doesn't want to let Stevens get comfortable coming forward and landing his shots without any return. That's just going to give Stevens way more confidence. So he should be beating up Stevens' legs as well. He should definitely, I think in the beginning, just target the front leg a lot, just to kind of damage and probably potentially take away power from Stevens as well. If you really damage someone's legs, their ability to generate power, it lessens over time. So that should be a priority, but he's going to have to keep his hands up. He's going to have to be very aware of what Stevens, he has to be aware of Stevens' counter off of his leg kicks and everything like that. He's also going to want to, when Steven does come forward, he's going to want to back out and circle right back to center. He has to control center. He has to avoid going up against the cage, because Stevens will I really do think he'll eat him alive if he pushes him up against the fence and traps him there. So Yair's going to want to really be diligent about keeping space, but then also trying to circle and control the center of the octagon as well. So, his kicking game is really going to be his priority. Really focusing on kicks is the answer for Yair. He's going to have to utilize different looks, show different techniques, not just the front kicks and leg kicks and body kicks. He's going to have to use the spinning techniques. He has to use a few wild techniques, I think, but I really do think he has to be conservative with it, particularly in the beginning. He's going to have to really pace himself in this fight, because I don't think he can just go all 25 minutes throwing wild techniques, unless his cardio has improved vastly. He's going to want to try and save that for the third round. I think that's when you notice in the Chan Sung Jung fight, he was waiting to use those more high, those really wild and more unorthodox techniques. He waited for the third round before he actually unleashed it. So I think he should do the same thing in this fight as well. Conserve his gas tank if need be. Going backwards, he's very, very effective. That's the interesting thing with Yair. Going backwards, he has a lot of different counters, besides the traditional kind of counters like step back right hand or, uppercuts or a check hook. He is also very effective with throwing elbows in a variety of different ways. We already saw that in the Chan Sung Jung fight. He backed away through a spinning elbow, but the angle was really, really interesting and weird. It wasn't spinning elbow like horizontal. It came kind of in a vertical angle and was able to catch Chan Sung Jung with that technique. But also the finishing blow that he landed, that up elbow. I mean, those are kind of creative things he's going to have to rely on in this fight. He can't just be super traditional. He's going to have to use some wild things that Stephens is not expecting. So if he can blend all these things together and he can get Stephens rushing forward in a false sense of confidence and then unleash a counter elbow on the way in, you can really see him hurt Stephens and potentially, capitalize on that, look for the finish from there. So as far as the wrestling goes, I think both men should at least attempt a single takedown for at least, once for every 1.5 rounds or something like that. Just throw a takedown in there to kind of offset their opponent's striking, because both guys like to strike. So because of that, throwing in a little takedown in there will force them to kind of hesitate, perhaps make them freeze, and then will perhaps open up more offense for them on the feet. So if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I will be dropping more videos and more podcasts in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.